Okay, can everybody give Hillary Hoffpower a hand because between she and Google, they figured out how to get my podcast back going. Yay! Woohoo! I'm going to tell you what, that was wearing that girl out, and Hillary can conquer anything with Google. And so she figured it out. And so now all the podcasts are back. The videos and everything have always been there, but it's the podcast that we were having trouble with. And, people like that because you want to go on a walk and you want to, do things. And so we got that figured out. All right, I got to get to where I can see. There we go. It's freezing cold here. What is going on? It's the wind, and I was in Idaho this weekend. Oh, I brought it back with me. I think that's what happened. For those of you who know Mary Landreth, she was involved for years here in Peoria. She is in Idaho now, and so she goes to a wonderful church called 10 Mile. And so I've had the privilege of speaking at their women's event for 2 years in a row. So it's one of those events that I love doing because I love to go speak to women and I love to see Mary Landreth. And so, but it was 19 degrees or something. It was beautiful, but it's cold. And you know what? We forget what that's like. Because when you pack, you think, I got this. No, you don't. Pack the dress coat you thought you weren't going to need because you're going to need it. And then, but we had so much fun. I am not you can ask Hillary, I'm not really good with social media. It's not because I can't figure it out. I don't want to. I don't love social media. And I know it's kind of sometimes a necessary beast. But we were having breakfast on our way to the airport, and there was this family, and you could tell like all the cousins were together, all the little kids in the end. And I was just watching them out of the corner of my eye, and they're so funny, all their little personalities. And it reminded me of Hillary and Zach and their little cousins every time we go to breakfast together. But there was this one little cute girl, and y'all, she was loving her pancakes so much that she took the plate when she was done and licked the entire plate, right? And so all I could see, was my baby doing that and laughing and thinking, if I had that picture, it would be the best, like, Enneagram, Lord have mercy. I've been talking personalities for 3 days. Instagram post of, man, if only I could teach you the Bible in such a way that at the end of the day, you just wanted to lick the plate. It was so good. And then I got on a roll because her little brother next to her was watching her, and he was just watching her, but his tongue was like this, And then I thought, that's an even better one, because then I thought, have you ever known anybody who loved the Bible so much that just watching them just made you go, like, I want what they have, And so I should have snapped those pictures, but that would have been a little awkward, bizarre. Can I please take a picture of your daughter licking her plate? I don't know about that. So anyway, how was y'all's week? Good? You made it here. In the cold. We're in the middle of flu season. A lot of people sick right now. Rob was sick while I was gone. I felt really sorry for him. He was miserable, and I wasn't there to take care of him. But I said, but could you, finish this up before I get home? Because I'm here for you, but I don't have time to get sick. And so, but anyway, he's feeling better, and it didn't help. Last night, the wind, y'all. It was cutting through you like you could not even stand outside. I'm like, oh my goodness. So anyway, for those of you who are happy that we got a new president, woohoo! For those of you who are sad, we love you. We love you anyway, and we're going to be there for you. We all have our years. And so anyway, I'm just excited it went off without any kind of nonsense, that we worry about. So it's a new day, and we'll see what happens. But okay, so do you remember where we were? Yep. Okay, so I want you to take 5 minutes, and the person that has the best notes at the table, I want you to remind your group where we've been. Okay? 5 minutes, go. Okay, how you feel about it? You good? You keeping up? Okay, we're going to just jump in. I'm going to start in Acts 16. So open up your Bibles, Acts 16. I'm going to begin in verse 11, so that'll get us in the vicinity of where we were. Acts chapter 16, verse 11. Let me pray for us before we start. Lord, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you that we just love each other. We look forward to seeing each other this morning. Just being friends and coming together and studying your word and getting refreshed and making sure that our eyes are fixed on you in all that we do. And so, God, I pray, I really do pray that every week they receive something so delicious that they want to lick the plate and they just want more. And I do pray that as people see us, it's not about knowledge. It's about knowledge that drops into the heart and into the hands and feet. And the more we know about you and the more we know about us, that we will just grow and you will transform our mind and our lives. And then when people see that in us, they stick out their tongues. They want to lick the same plate. And so, Lord, I pray that that would just continue as we come together. It would be a place where everyone's welcome, where they feel like they get loved on and greeted, and that we just study deeply your story because we're a part of it. The fact is, your story is of the most importance, not ours. Ours is important because we play a role in yours. And so, God, we just praise you. We worship you. You are King of Kings and Lord of Lords right now. And so I also ask, Lord, I'm ready. Your kingdom come. But until then, your will be done. And so we love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, here we go. Acts 16, verse 11. So setting sail to Troas, we made a direct voyage to Samothrace and the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city some days. Do you remember what I told you about that Roman colony? I kind of gave you the example. It's not perfect, but it gives you the idea. It's kind of like if somewhere else there was like a little America. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? To where we founded it and then we filled it with retired American soldiers and created this colony, and it ran on American ideas and American law, and American citizenship was seriously valued. And so there was this pride and honor within this American colony. That's kind of how it is. It's like a little microcosm of Rome, if you would say. And we talked about, remember that possibly, write this in pencil, it could have been Luke's hometown. If not, we think he was probably quite intimate with it. One of the reasons might be that it had one of the best medical schools. I don't know, but we know that now Luke is on this journey because we've gone first person. We took this trip, and so now they have arrived at Philippi. And on the Sabbath day, we went outside the gate to the riverside where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the women who had come together. Why did they suppose that outside the city at the river there might be a place of prayer? Right, because there's water there. It pretty much tells us there's not enough Jewish presence in this place to have a synagogue. I don't know if I told you, but you have to, I think the rule was something like 10 men, okay, to have a synagogue. And so they would go outside because it was a very small cult that this would have been in Philippi, which means it couldn't have operated within the city gates. But it makes more sense because they have so many ceremonial cleansings that need to happen that it would be at a river at the time too. I mean, Luke would have been aware. You also have Timothy, whose mother was married to a Greek, and so they would have known. So they thought, if anywhere, it'll be outside of the city, down at this river, a place of prayer. So that's where they head, and they run into some women. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia. Oh, he sat down to talk to them. That's the posture of a teacher. I should sit down to talk to y'all, because sometimes y'all think I'm your preacher or your pastor, but I'm really just your teacher. And so maybe I need to get a stool up here. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods, who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said to Paul, and after she was baptized, and her household as well, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." And she prevailed upon us. So let's talk about her. He sits down to talk to some women, and he's introduced to a lady by the name of Lydia. So the way I would introduce this section, there are some themes here. Luke is showing us through his choice stories the equality of women and men in the plan of salvation. He is also showing us that they have equal importance in the new community. In this chapter, we're going to see the salvation of a prominent woman, Lydia. We're also going to see the salvation of a Roman jailer and their families, their households, or who is within their household. We will see the gospel triumph in the midst of Lydia's home church that is going to begin. And we're going to see God triumph in the middle of a Roman-controlled stronghold. You're going to see the gospel triumph over natural things, natural powers, and you're going to see the gospel triumph over supernatural powers. All right, so the first fact I want you to see is that she's called by her personal name. That is actually a little unusual, and it definitely suggests that she is Greek. It also suggests that she is a woman of status. In other words, she's notorious. You know Lydia. All right? She's notorious. It says that she is a seller of purple clothes. That's a big deal. There is evidence that dealing in this color meant that somehow you were tied to the house of Caesar, because this was an imperial monopoly that was going on. And so basically what this is saying is that she's incredibly connected. All right? So she is Greek. She is a woman of status, great means, and she is very connected, possibly to the imperial family, the house of Caesar, because she is dealing in purple garments. One commentator said, such women of means were not unusual in Macedonia, which since at least the Hellenistic area had allowed women important social, political, and religious roles. Not to mention, there is evidence in the Roman world that various women owned provincial estates, and they were very well off. And even the wives of Roman provincial officials are honored in inscriptions that have been found. That's huge. And they took on various religious roles. Okay? So I don't want you to think that women did not have notoriety or means. Or do you remember how I said, especially in this province, there were incredible rights and freedoms? Okay, so you're seeing this happen. The bottom line, this is Half Power version. Bottom line, it was women or men with money and social status that procured them roles in pagan religious settings. At the end of the day, the religious and political worlds of that day and the Hellenistic and the Roman culture, they really didn't care at times if you were male and female, as long as you had money, notoriety, status, connection. We see that today. And here, God's going to actually use this woman of means to play an important role in the kingdom. She's going to provide a very important thing that I can relate to. A venue, right? A venue. Move in the heart of this woman, and she is going to open up her home. But here's the thing. She opens up her home because she opens up her home. It's her idea. Her offering comes from her changed heart. Paul and the boys do not manipulate her for a venue. They don't ask her for anything. They're not respecters of people. They don't massage the relationship. They don't train. They don't do any of that stuff. They are sharing the gospel message. And when the heart is changed out of that heart, what does she do? She gives what she has. You know why? Because she learns it's no longer hers. And so she gives with an open heart. It is spirit-generated generosity. It is not manipulated by Paul and the boys. Matter of fact, she has to convince them. How does she say it? If you consider me at all a woman of faith, please come. And what does she know? They are going to have a better opportunity in their mission if they have a connection and a home place in her home. They're going to be better off. And so she offers that, and they take her up on it. All right? So we introduced her a little bit last week. So keep reading. I want to tell you this too. Here's how I see it going down. You know how I always tell you the story as if I wrote it for, what do we watch? The Chosen. Okay? So here's what I think. You've got this Greek woman of means. Like, how did she end up out there? Aren't you curious? Here's how I see it going down. She is this beautiful woman of means. She deals in what? Purple clothing. So somehow she's in the clothing industry. So somehow she's made this connection. Did I just put it? With women. She's somehow come into connection with these Jewish women who are married to Greek men, more than like. They're Jewish women of the diaspora, right? They had been scattered. Now they're in this world. They probably married Greek men. And so in the clothing industry, somehow they've met. Do you understand? Like, their life is our life. How do people meet? We're out and about. We're trying on stuff. We're like, yeah, these are okay. Well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a speaker. Dress pants are so darn hard. Have you tried dress pants? They're hard, and I don't do dresses because I'm elevated up on the stage and I don't want to wear jeans all the time. Oh, well, what do you teach about? Jesus. Oh, that's cool. How does that work? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is what happens. They're in doing their own thing. Somehow she's met these women, and now she's gotten in with these women who worship Yahweh. And so now she is a God seeker, and you find her. What does that tell you? She may have money, she may have notoriety, she may have influence, but something was missing. Something that these women seem to have. And so before you know it, somewhere along the way, she ends up being a God seeker in relationship with them, seeking the Yahweh, and they're down at the river. And it just so happens that they're down there together on a Sabbath, and here comes Paul and the boys. And he ministers to them, and he teaches to them. And God opens up her heart. And she's like, yes. And so God opens up a door that she's been knocking on. And she believes. And she's changed. And she says, now everything I have is yours. You use it. And she offers that venue because the first thing she says is, okay, now let me help. Okay, don't read these stories like they're on a flannel board and they're not real. I mean, it's so curious. Like, how did this woman end up with these women at the river? It's life. Talk to people. Have joy. Be the same people you are in here out there. Get in conversations. Because I believe people are longing for something. And they need to be invited. And they need to be loved on. And I can't tell you the divine appointments that can happen when you'll just be pleasant and get into a conversation with people. I mean, obviously, I have a lift ministry because every time I'm in a lift, that is the subject. It's Jesus. And I'm always praying that they will respond well, or they might take me to some warehouse and kill me. I'm not sure. Okay, but it's just life. And so verse 16. Here we go. As we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a slave girl who had a spirit of divination and brought her owners much gain by fortune telling. She followed Paul and us, crying out, 'These men are servants of the Most High God, who proclaim to you the way of salvation.' And this she kept doing for many days. Paul, having become greatly annoyed, turned and said to the Spirit, 'I command you, in the name of Jesus Christ, to come out of her.' And it came out that very hour. But when her owners saw that their hope of gain was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace before the rulers." Okay, let's see what's going on. Now, when we see this happen, this situation happened with Lydia, right away, because this is amazing, right away, we're going to see what? Pushback. Because need I remind you, what would I name the Bible if I got to rewrite the title? The Tale of Two Kingdoms. Don't lose sight of what's happening here. We just had Lydia and her household baptized. So what does that mean? They've identified with the death and resurrection of Jesus as king, and they've entered into a new kingdom. What happened? Let me tell you what, Peter, on this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. What does that mean? We are the offensive. We are literally going to go in and we're snatching people out, and they will be born into our kingdom, the church. And this is what's happening, and who doesn't like it? The enemy. The prince of the air, the ruler of this present kingdom, does not like it. So we're going to begin to see incredible pushback. And we're going to see what I'm calling this like unholy trinity situation here, where it is the spirits, you're going to see money, and you're going to see politics, earthly rulers operating together because they don't like this. So the first thing we see is this slave girl that has this spirit that the Greek world knew all about, the spirit of divination. People here in this Greek world regularly went to places like Delphi to ask the priestess of Apollo for advice on everything from getting married to making war. If you look at the original language, this is actually said that she is a slave girl with a python spirit. I know, go ahead and write that down in your notes. That's pretty cool. Why? Because Python was originally a mythical serpent or dragon guarding the temple of Apollo, who is the Pythian deity. All right? So now you understand why they would go to Delphi to ask the priestess of Apollo for advice. It later came to be a reference to a demon-possessed person through whom the python spoke. I know. Plutarch, who had been a priest at Delphi, speaks of such as ventriloquists who uttered words beyond their control. Does that give you the picture? Do you realize it wasn't that long ago that Christian people actually viewed ventriloquists as evil? Isn't that something? So do you have the picture? In other words, she was viewed as a girl with a python spirit, a fortune teller, someone you go to seek advice about your future of what is going on, that spoke from this spirit of Apollo. So she was a psychic, and she was very fruitful for her owners. Okay? So was she legit? Seems so, huh? And she made her owners a lot of money. So what is she doing? Well, as they're going out to the river and moving about, she is crying out, "These men are slaves of the Most High God, who proclaim to you a way of salvation." Now, I'm going to work this out for you because can I just tell you, there is incredible disagreement among theologians, and I tend to hold things lightly. So I'm going to tell you different perspectives of this because we're not going to die on this mountain. But in reality, when we read this statement, it is, or at least it seems what? True. Okay? Especially when you consider Luke 8:28. Okay, because what is that story? That is when Jesus goes across after the storm and heals the demoniac. Okay, so for your notes, Luke 8:28, when he encounters the demoniac who is over across the Sea of Galilee in the place called the Decapolis, if you've ever read that story, and they land and nobody's there and they encounter a monster. Well, nobody's there because of the monster. They've tried to chain him. They can't chain him. He has supernatural power. He's naked, which represents shame. He lives amongst the tombs. He is a violent creature. I mean, bad. And we know he's possessed by multiple demons because when Jesus speaks to the demons that answer back, the name is Legion because we are many. So this guy is completely gone and something else is speaking for him. But when they see Jesus, if you remember, the demons do what in the man? They fall down on their face because they know who he is. He's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. They have no power there. But they say, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High?" Okay, so they recognize who he is. His power is greater. So many theologians point out the issue here. It's more about how it is received. Okay, so how would the hearer have heard that message in this Greek Roman culture? So remember, there is very little Jewish influence here at all. Okay, because many people will say that when he says the Most High God, and they are true, if you look back in history, the majority of the time when it says the Most High God, in reference, it is talking about the Jewish God. But there is no Jewish influence much in this area. And if they had said the Most High, right, probably they would, whoever the hearer was, would have just thought of the highest God in their world, okay, unless the speaker was Jewish. It would determine, it's based on who's saying it. If a Jewish person was saying the Most High God, then they're referencing their Jewish God. If not, this is a slave girl with a python spirit saying the Most High, it possibly would have been received as just the highest God that they were aware of. Whatever God the person thought supreme. And as far as salvation goes, in this culture, they would have viewed that as health and healing and rescue. Okay? So could it be that she was saying, men of God, these are men of God with power to rescue and heal you? So think about that. What could have been the problem with that? Well, I thought, in this situation, it could have increased their popularity, but confused the truth. She, this woman with a python spirit, known to be a fortune teller, is proclaiming about Paul and the boys that they are men of the Most High and they will save you and rescue you. And so what could have happened? Enormous crowds, but it could have seriously confused the truth of what they were saying. In other words, follow these men because they'll make your life better now. Yeah, no matter the issue of context, would this be the one that you would want advertising for you? And think about that. I mean, we have examples of this today, okay? I would say pastors who are in certain denominations that are much more into this spirit of what we can do to heal you now, save you now, make your life better now. And they draw huge numbers of crowds, but what happens with the actual truth? It's super confused. It gets confused in this prosperity gospel of, if you do the following things now, God will bless you and heal you if you have faith to do it. That is possibly worshiping the true God, but worshiping it as a pagan. All right? That's just one thought. But the other thought is, do you really want her being your mouthpiece? Okay, I wrote down, it's like Madonna advertising abstinence. It's like Jeffrey Epstein being the face of the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, honestly, think about it. Is this the one you would want being on your commercials to draw a crowd? This is a problem. And so, however you want to interpret that, this is a problem. We know it's a problem. And it is irritating the living snot out of Paul. You know, it's annoying. One of the things I was thinking about, or I think maybe Professor Proverb asked me, he's like, why do you think it took Paul so long? Well, I actually thought about that for a while. He didn't give me an answer. But I thought about that yesterday. And why did it take him so long? Well, to this point, it seems teaching that power is enough. Maybe he learned in Lystra how the Hellenists respond to signs and wonders. Do you remember that? In Lystra, what happened? He healed the crippled man. This was a really funny story, kind of. Remember? He healed the crippled man, and they were like, oh, and it says the whole crowd believed. But they started speaking in their local dialect, and Paul and Barnabas couldn't understand them. So by the response, they think everything's awesome. I mean, there's a parade. And then all of a sudden, they realize the parade is the biggest pagan movement in the world, and that these people think that they're Zeus and Hermes. And at the end of the day, Paul rips his clothes and goes in the middle of the parade and says, men, why are you doing what you're doing? And it didn't turn out good for Paul. So, I mean, honestly, think about this. If he performs a sign and wonder, right? They may be amazed, but it could start a parade in the wrong direction, and he's trying to keep it at bay. I'm sure he also knows that the girl is working for someone. Okay? I put, haven't you ever been in a situation you just hope would go away on its own because no matter what you chose to do, there was going to be fallout? And boy, was there. You know, because either way, she is causing what? Like a disturbance. I mean, he's either going to cast out the demon, and now there's going to be groups of people, and you don't know how they're going to deal with that, and it could distract from being able to truly speak the truth. Or now he's going to cast out the demon, and who's going to be mad? The owners, because she's making money. And at the end of the day, it says he's annoyed. I called Glubish and said, well, can we have a different motive than annoyed? And he goes, well, I'm sure he was compassionate towards the girl as well, because honestly, in the whole story, it seems like to me, nobody cares about the girl. Well, that's not new. So the issue is he casts out the demon. And when the spirit left her, so did her owner's ability to make money. That's exactly what happens. He says, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And it came out of her that very hour. Did you notice that the slave girl had said, these are men of the Most High God. But when he casts out the demon, what name does he use? Jesus. He is very clear. It is not about him. He says, I command you, but in the name of who? Jesus. Okay, he is the Most High God. He is clear. The Most High God is Jesus. And so when the owners realized that they have lost their ability to make dinero, They seize Paul and Silas and drag them into the marketplace. Oh my gosh. This once again reminds me of the demoniac story. You know why? Because people are people. Have you noticed that throughout this Bible and the world? So when Jesus meets the demoniac and he casts the demons, if you remember, because they said, Jesus, Son of God, of the Most High, are you here to torment us before it's time? Please cast us, right? So he cast them into the swine, into the pigs. But what happened? They jump off the cliff and they go into the abyss, okay? Which in other words, the demons go back where they belong, okay? This is kind of the story. But what you would think that when the townspeople came and realized what has happened, that this monster that they could not control, that Jesus now has cast out the demons, the man is dressed in his right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus in peace. And when they came, they were annoyed. Why? Because their income just went into the abyss. And then they realize, snap, this man has more power than the monster. You got to go. Isn't that something? You got to go. And you have this issue here. It's the same here. No concern. No concern for the demoniac who was once a beast and now a human sitting at Jesus' feet. And it is the same here. No concern for her at all. She has been set free. But the problem is she's no longer their puppet slave. And so their number one concern is money, not humanity. So the second malevolent force we see is not just demonic spirit, but what? Money. That's why it's very clear you cannot serve two masters. Because here you have it right here. We see that all over in our world today. The priority of money. That we see it more today, and we are more aware of it today than before, of the amount of sex trafficking and human trafficking. Slavery is dominant in our world today. If you don't know that, then you're putting your head in the sand. It is huge, a huge problem. And it is all because of money. And people have figured out that in many ways, it's easier to traffic people than drugs. And they don't want them free because a human being to them is nothing but money. I'm telling you what, when we fail to bow the knee to God, we become like the beast. And so they drag Paul and Silas into the agora before the local magistrate, probably wanting either compensation or revenge through the courts. This is interesting to me. Money men pushing political men. Well, that's a thought. I'm just going to let that sit with you for a minute. Who's running the place? Looks like to me, money men are pushing political men. And then what happens is, I put in here, I just wanted you to know, because I put what a concept. I put, why just Paul and Silas? Does anybody have that question? Because I must have had that immediately in my notes, right? Paul and Silas. I would suggest to you, I don't know for a fact, but probably they were the main speakers, okay? They were the upfront leaders. They were absolutely dominantly Jew, okay, from outer appearance. Because if you think about it, Timothy, although he had gotten circumcised, his father was Greek. So possibly he could have passed. And then Luke was a Gentile. He wasn't Jewish. I wanted to give you a quote about what the agora is. MacDonald says in his book, Archaeology in St. Peter's Journeys, the 2nd century agora has been uncovered, and on its northwest side there was a raised podium or bema seat with stairs on 2 sides, before which civil cases would be tried, with the city prison adjacent or perhaps underneath. So this will help us with the context of this story. They brought Paul and Silas to the agora, to the bema seat, to where the magistrates would hold trials. And it would have been adjacent to, or possibly the prison would have been actually underneath it, because it all seems to go down right there, right? And then where do you think the prison, the jailer's home possibly was? In that vicinity somewhere, either connected to, right there. And so that makes sense. So I think because of their wealth and status, these people fully believed they were going to win. There is nothing new under the sun today. If they had money and connections, then they fully believed that they could bring it to these local magistrates and they were going to win. And what I also find interesting is they didn't actually accuse them of what they did. Let's listen to it. It says, verse 20, and then they had brought them to the magistrates. They said, these men are Jews, and they are disturbing our city. They advocate customs that are not lawful for us as Romans to accept or practice. The crowd joined in, attacking them, and the magistrates tore the garments off them and gave orders to beat them with rods. And when they had inflicted many blows upon them, they threw them into prison, ordering the jailer to keep them safely. Having received this order, he put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in stocks. They didn't accuse them of what they actually did, which was what? Cast out a demon and blow their bank account. Okay? They said they created this narrative of rhetoric. What does that mean? Persuasion. Okay? They created a whole story to sway emotion and to play on the people's fears. Does this ever sound familiar? They are anti-American. You're like, oh, she's getting bossy now. They're anti-American. They're here to change our laws and our ways, to bring their laws and their customs. We got to get rid of them. See, sometimes I get bossy on one side and then I get bossy on another. I'm an equal opportunity bossy. But this was actually untrue. But truth doesn't matter as long as you can convince the people. And that's exactly what they did. And what turned into an accusation motivated by money of people of power persuaded the people, and before you know it, there's a mob. And people will do in a mob what they would never think to do on their own. There is nothing new under the sun. This is why it is so awesome to study the Bible. It is all here. It tells you who God is and it tells you who humanity is. And we need to see both, because we need to be like the one, and we need to recognize this nonsense when it shows up in us. And remember, we're not in this kingdom, we're in his. And it is the most amazing book. So you have the people up in arms, and because of that, the politicians are forced to act. Because who are they afraid of? The people. That can be a pro and that can be a con. The people have power. The people have power in numbers. And so in this case, the problem is the people are being persuaded by the wrong thing, told a wrong story, and their emotion gets up in a mob and they push the politicians to do the wrong thing. and they do it to save their own necks, and they strip Paul and Silas, and they beat the crud out of them with rods. They were thrown in prison, and they were placed in absolute isolation to keep them secure. This is how bad it is. And this all happened without any opportunity for a proper defense. Ugh. Literally, it happened so fast. They were drugged there. These men of money and power got everything going and swayed, and it was a mob. And in front of the mob, the politicians were convinced, and they were stripped and shamed and beaten and thrown into isolation, and they were never even given the ability to speak, have a trial, any kind of defense. They weren't even charged with anything. They were just thrown in a hole January 6th. If you think this stuff, these tactics, these motives, these malevolent three unholy trinity isn't happening today, driven by the prince of the air, darkness, motivated by the things of this world, and that using the rulers of this world that are about power and position and staying in them. And before you know it, someone can put out a narrative that's absolutely wrong, and a person has no defense, sitting in a hole, not even charged, has no defense, and seems to have no hope. Right here. The courts had just caved under pressure. The problem? There's a big problem. Paul and Silas are Roman citizens. Seems like in this day, that actually still meant something. They were placed in stocks. That would have been painful. Think about it. They had already been beaten. And yet they sing and pray, even as late as midnight. Wow. And I assume that the other inmates could hear them. Mary Landreth and I had this conversation this weekend about the book of Job. And we both have that conversation because we've both lost children. And we talk all around the issue of Job. And, one of the things I said to her is, Job just made me mad. I said, I remember thinking, after losing Zach, this book's ridiculous. Like, you could give me 5 more sons. Restore it all. Give me 5 more sons. It's not Zachary. You can't tie that up in a bow. That's the point. That's the point of Job, is that life is that you can have incredible grief and loss and sorrow, and you will continually hold that in this hand because it's not going to go away this side of redemption. But yet, you can get to a point that while you hold this, God also allows you to see goodness in the land of the living. And it's super interesting to be in that spot because I carry this and it is super heavy, and some days I think I can't. I can go just as dark as if it just happened. It's just I'm stronger to talk myself out that I won't stay there. But I can be there and at the same time think, I am so happy in my new marriage. I don't know how I got so blessed to have such a beautifully kind, amazing man. I don't know how. How freeing that is. How awesome it is that I just have someone that is kind-hearted, cares about how I feel, cares about what I think. It's so awesome. But it's weird to be so sad. And then to have times where I have moments of just real happiness. And then Mary said something that was interesting to me. She said, well, I can't get over the first part. And she said, and I've searched and searched how that scenario can even be right, how that accuser can even walk in there and start this situation, right? And we talked about it, and she worked it out. And she says, the opening scene to me is so hard to swallow. You know, Job was a righteous man, but his suffering brought out the hidden questions in the deep places of his heart. Because I don't care how righteous you are, in the deep, deep crevices, there are questions about God. And he remained faithful. And the reason is all of that suffering brought out all of that deep questioning in the heart. And when it came out, even though he didn't really have the answers, he remained faithful. And that is why we're still talking about him today. And I thought, gosh, that is so beautiful. Because as faithful as you are, when stuff like that happens, the stuff that only you know might be sneaking around inside of their doubt and questions, it doesn't stay hidden. It comes out like, where are you, God? How dare you take my son? I've always been faithful to you. What else do you want from me? It all comes out. You can't hold it. But at the end of the day, you remain faithful. And it seems like to me, it's in those times, the prison times, when you've been beat to an absolute pulp for no reason, with no defense given, have no idea where it's going, and you're in agony, and you choose to praise and to remain faithful. I don't know, but it seems like those are the greatest times of testimony you'll ever get. When we remain in the hard stuff, that is the greatest testimony that our world will ever see, because it makes no sense to them. And so don't always despair when the hard stuff comes, because it's in the hard stuff, number one, that I believe God does the most work in you. And number two, if we can just hang on, he's going to hang on to us. But if we're just like Jacob and say, you're not answering me, you're not giving me any answers, I'm not winning in any way, but I'm going to hang on to you, dang it, because I know at the end of the day, the only answer is you. And to just hang on, that could be one of the greatest testimonies that you will ever have. And people are watching. And we're going to see when we come back, because I'm not going to start in another section, we're going to see when we come back, that's exactly what happens in this prison. They trusted, they hung on, and God used that in an amazing way. And so we have about 6 minutes, and that's going to give you, I've given you a lot today. There's a lot. There is plenty to talk about at your table. So will you please, just at your table, don't leave these 5 minutes. Talk to your friends here. What's the thing that stuck with you the most today? And just talk with each other for a few minutes. God bless you as you do that and as you go today.